Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. The Afterlife. Well, this is a subject that's going to be slightly controversial, but the afterlife is not quite what is popularized. We get the idea of going before the pearly gates and talking to St. Peter. We get the idea from the Tibetan Book of the Dead where we're given choices of paths to go down. And some of us are given the idea of a judgment, a final judgment, weighing your soul against a feather to see whether you're worthy to ascend to their equivalent of godhood or heaven. What if I told you all these are correct? Let me explain how. We talk about a tree of life, excuse me, in everyday society where you start off with a sponge and wind up as an animal that can think, breathe, and make stupid reality TV shows. And the idea is humanity is evolving up that tree to get to the upper branches where it theoretically will evolve into something higher. Not a bad way to interpret it, but in my experience, it's not really how things go. First of all, full confession, I've had a near death experience. When I was younger, I was in and out of consciousness, and I was told I'd be dead within 24 hours unless, I got a liver transplant, this, but that, and the other thing. But you know what? I came back. Still got my original liver, hardest working liver in the universe. And yeah, nothing short of a miracle. But my personal experience was a little bit different. Now, I was voyaging towards something. I did meet people. They didn't feel like family, but they were not evil either. They were not coming at me and saying, we're going to drag you down. They basically, they told me one thing personal that I can't really talk about. And then they told me it was too early for me and I had to go back. So I'm back and better than ever. Although not really, but that's a whole other story that maybe I'll get into one day after a substantial amount of liquid refreshment. But let's talk about how this impacts the afterlife. The afterlife, from what I could see and what I experienced, gave you access to a number of paths. I was stopped right where that branch began. So, since I couldn't go much further, but I could see and understand what was going on. It was quite fascinating. One of them, I imagined, you would join to become a ghost. Now, this comes from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. You can come back as a hungry ghost, as a pretaloka. And that's an interesting subject. They're frequently depicted as people with tiny mouths, little tiny mouths, and gigantic stomachs, so that no matter how much you eat, you never get full. And that's the torture of that existence, where you can't fill yourself no matter what, and you're always hungry. Even though you're surrounded by ultimate pleasures and everything, you can't fulfill yourself with them. Wonderful stuff, vibrant imagery. There's the home of the jealous gods, where you manifest and you think, ah, I am a god, I am wonderful. And then you're worried other people are wonderful too. I hope they don't find out I'm a fraud. This smacks so heavily on the psychological scale. Jung talked about it, Freud talked about it, Becker talked about it, where people are born with consciousness of their being alive, and their immediate first thought is, I'm going to die. And they spend the rest of their life in this constant circle between Eros and Thanos. Eros, love, and Thanos, death. That's kind of what the whole jealous gods symbolizes. But that's just one possible afterlife, becoming a ghost. You can still take and fully human form or a ghost form or any of those things that we have in our modern lexicon. And yeah, you can haunt people, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff. The judgment. Anubis, the one who stands at the scales and weighs your soul against the feather. Beautiful imagery. Your soul must be as light as a feather. Well, as far as I know, souls don't weigh anything. There were some experiments around the 1880s to the early 1900s where they would weigh somebody as they died and noticed there was a slight weight difference, giving the idea that the soul does have weight. These experiments have not really been followed up upon, so you have to keep testing something in order to say, yep, you got to replicate that experiment, and that has not been done. So I'm going to leave those in the plausible character, or sorry, plausible category. We have another bunch of mythologies that relate your soul is judged, but on a much less arbitrary category. How much sin you've accumulated. And you can interpret sin as, the weight that your soul is dragging. And based on that, you may go to heaven, you may go to hell, you may be tossed into a swamp of fire, you may be eaten by a crocodile. Again, the Egyptian religion, the ancient Egyptian religion, or at least one particular sect of it. So the judgment point of view is, it's really phenomenal. It's mutated itself and held its grasp on us right to the modern day. So let's put that as a maybe. The blossom into being angels and stuff like that, that's supposedly for, what is it, 169,000 people or some crap like that? Yeah, I've always stated, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, if me eating a bacon double cheeseburger was the difference between me going into heaven and hell, I had other problems besides the bacon double cheeseburger. That wasn't the thing that threw me over the edge. It wasn't the decider. But they all do sound like variations on a theme. Your life dictates your afterlife. Some people take this very seriously, and indeed it dovetails into eschatology, the ideas of the end of the world. Some people can't cope with the fact that life will exist without them, and they assume that Armageddon applies to them, whether it's the book of Revelations, whether it's a mystery sect. And the good news is they've all been wrong. The bad news is we don't know if eventually they'll be right. But Revelation specifically says you are not to know when the final day is. Only God may know. So anybody who predicts, yeah, they're wrong. They are completely wrong. We are so arrogant as a species that even when offered wisdom, we don't recognize it. And it's a shame that when we're given so many insights and so much to consider, that we don't recognize the value. You notice how all these religions say pretty much the same thing. there is life after death. And there is something to hope for. There's something beyond the mortal pale. You will have other experiences. Now, this is secondhand information, but between near death experiences, the texts that we've been given, there's a preponderance of evidence to consider. Remember, I told you in court, it's only in a criminal case that you have to have overwhelming evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt. I don't think these are criminal cases when you're judged or whatever decision is made about you, but preponderance of evidence. Because if we use every single thing somebody had done, no one's going to get into the paradise that they promised. It's hard to let go. I mean, I imagine a caterpillar doesn't have an idea of what a butterfly is, and we're the same way. Our souls are capable of transmutation. Our souls are capable of becoming more than what we know is possible. Physics shows that particles can be waves and waves can be particles, and it's a two-way street. You can form both. If there was a creator, don't you think they would give us the same opportunities as they do subatomic particles? We have the right, we have the choice to make the world a better place. And I give you an assertion, which is in the afterlife, we could do the exact same thing. I know this is based on secondhand evidence and a wink and a trust me. And don't try to go chasing the afterlife right now because, yeah, you have a time and a place. And I will tell you that. You can't force it. Well, you can force it, but it's not going to go well for you. So consider that as positive information. Don't use this to justify any decisions because I'm no prophet. But we hope it gives you a little bit of sunshine in this world because sometimes it can be dark indeed. With that, we wish to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, because sharing is caring. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And don't forget to click the icon down below so that way you can stay informed every time we publish a new episode, usually every day at noon. And thank you very much. We hope you have a fantastic day.